Quantum Break is a time travel themed third-person shooter developed by Remedy Entertainment in 2016. Quantum Break is the only modern Remedy game that I haven't played prior to this review. Hell, I've even played Control, so I kinda just skipped this one for some reason. I haven't heard much about it either, besides some news and reviews during launch, so it didn't catch on. For curiosity's sake, and for the purpose of covering Remedy games, join me to find out just what is up with Quantum Break. The graphics are alright. It's got a green and red, orange color filter going on, which I'm not a fan of, but everything else looks good, for the time at least. The time warping effects look cool, and so are the powers you get to use. What's not cool though is the performance. It's really weird in this game. The game never really feels smooth even though it runs at 60 FPS. There's stutters everywhere due to poor frame pacing. Cutscenes are shown in 30 FPS even though it's in-game. I get it if the cutscenes are pre-rendered, but in-game? There's no reason why. Then there's this. And this. And even this. It just loops infinitely and I don't understand why. I had to restart the whole level to fix it, and that costed me some time. The animations and cutscenes are also stuttery sometimes. But the weirdest thing is that these problems only occurred in the first 3 acts. It's all fine after. I mean, it still has micro stutters, but none of that other weird shit. Like, is this a prank? Is there a camera in my room? If there is, please delete the footage. You gotta pay for that kind of content. The game looks blurry with motion blur and depth of field on, and there's no way to turn them off without downloading a file from PC Gaming Wiki. Just like in Alan Wake, it's missing the toggles for those features in the graphics options. I don't get it. Are these important to the vision of this game? It looks like I'm stumbling towards the bathroom to take a piss after using eye drops. Overall, there's some shitty things about the performance, but not shitty enough to ruin the experience entirely. I just wish things are more consistent. Quantum Break is a linear level-based third-person shooter at its core. You go into a room to pop some fools, do some light puzzle solving and platforming sometimes, get some story, and repeat. Combat is alright. The bullet spread is a bit too much. You have to do burst shots to be accurate. If you hold down the fire button for more than 2 seconds, the bullets start going all over the place. Nowhere near the reticle. It's so bad that shooting anyone at a distance takes forever even with burst shots. I don't know, maybe it's just the SMGs, but it shouldn't be this bad. You're pretty weak in battle, so you gotta take advantage of your time powers. That's right, you have the power to manipulate time a bit. Just a bit though. Don't want to make players too OP yelling Zawaldo every second. That's what I yell every time I'm about to cut. You can freeze enemies, do a time dash or a sprint that can freeze time for a bit if you aim after, and put a time freeze bubble under you to slow down bullets coming your way. They're all useful since fights can get hectic sometimes. For enemies, they're the regular guys in armor, big guys, and time travel dudes, which are just fast guys who can zip around. The lineup is very similar to Alan Wake's. That's to say, it's alright. Fighting enemies in Quantum Break is way less interesting though. No one really goes up in your face trying to gut your balls off, so there's no need to dodge most of the time. Occasionally, you get a big boy that you have to time sprint to the back of to hit their weak point, but mostly you can just treat the game as a regular shooter, staying behind cover and pop some shots. I think the game could have made the player utilize the powers more, add more enemies that require time powers to defeat. Grab me by the balls just a little harder to get me going. There's an upgrade system for your powers, but getting points is kinda confusing. Apparently you have to find and collect these Chronon resources hidden in levels for skill points, but I rarely found any throughout my playthrough. I got like 6 I think out of 60. Whose shitty asshole are they hiding inside of? At the end of an act, you get to pick a choice as the villain of the game, Paul. The story kinda changes depending on what you pick in these junction sections. Paul can see into the near future to see how his choices can impact him. At first, it's kind of weird how you make decisions. You obviously want to pick the one that's beneficial to Jack, because he's the protagonist. But you make decisions as Paul, so he wouldn't jeopardize himself like a dumbass. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter, so pick what you want. After making a decision, you get to watch the Quantum Break TV show. That's right, there's a TV show component for this video game, and each episode is around 25 minutes long. That's a full-length episode of a show that you need to watch at the end of every act to understand the story. Remedy has used live-action content to present the story of Alan Wake before, in small bits throughout, and it's cool and not intrusive to the gameplay. But this has taken cinematics in a video game to a whole new level, a level that shouldn't be attained. It really slows down the game. What's worse is that the show is just okay. Anyway, that's how the game goes. You play like an hour, make a choice, and watch an episode of the show. In a way, this feels more like a multimedia project than a game, like how certain series have shows with tie-in books, except here it's all in one package. There's a reason why they're in different packages. It's because they're completely different experiences with different expectations. And when you mix them together, the people that come in expecting a game get bored with like 1/3 of it. It just doesn't feel right. It's story time. If you don't want spoilers, go to this timestamp. The story has a cool ending, but the journey there is not too engaging. The story starts with Jack going to his friend Paul's science demonstration. Paul wants Jack to convince his brother Will to get more funding for his science project. That project is a time machine. They start it up and it works, but when Paul goes back in, Will comes to stop the machine, saying it'll cause a time fracture, and it does. Gunman from Monarch Solutions, a big tech company, comes to catch Will. Jack gains time powers when he went near the time machine to help Paul and uses them to fight the gunman and make their way out of the university. While getting out, Jack meets Beth Wilder, who's helping Will as an undercover agent at Monarch to restore time. Will gets caught, but Jack rescues him, and it's revealed that Paul is behind this, and he's the leader of Monarch. Paul couldn't get out of the time machine when it broke earlier, so he went through the time machine to the future where he saw the end of time, and then went back further in time to start Monarch to get the resources required to repair time again. Paul also claims to have seen all the possibilities when it comes to fixing the time fracture, and he's now here to stop Will, who's getting in his way. Paul seemingly kills Will via exploding library building rubble, and Jack gets captured by Monarch. Also, Paul has time powers too. Eventually, Jack escapes and goes on to learn more about the time machine and Will's research, and try to find a way to stop the time fracture with Beth. While the game portion focuses on Jack, the TV show focuses on the side characters and how they're helping behind the scenes. The show portion is okay, the characters are alright, and they all have their own motives. Liam, the Monarch security guy, has a wife with a child on the way, and you can see that he's a family man at heart, so I kinda rooted for him. He gets wrongly accused of being a traitor, but still tries to keep his family safe from the time fracture. Fiona is an undercover agent working with Beth at Monarch, and she's trying to get more information by befriending the tech guy, Charlie. Charlie is loyal to Monarch and has a bit of a crush on Fiona. When he learns that Fiona is actually against Monarch, he feels conflicted by it. You can see how much drama this sets up, but none of it pays off. Charlie never confronts Fiona about this, and there's no self-conflict about staying safe with Monarch or doing the right thing going on. At the end, when he suddenly changes his mind and chooses to help Fiona and dies for it, I didn't give a fuck. There's no build up to his change of mind, so it just feels shallow and unnatural. Oh boy, if only this is the length of an actual season of a TV show, things would have enough time to build itself up and doesn't have to fit in for gameplay. 4 episodes is too short for this kind of character development. Then there's Martin Hatch, Paul's right-hand man. I think he has the potential to be a good villain. He's calm and collected and knows how to use his words to get what he wants. He's also a time shifter, being able to use time powers just like Paul and Jack. You would think you get to fight this man, but no. It could have been so cool. What's worse is that he gets his head popped by Liam, a regular ass guy. How does that even happen? This man can fuck up 4 guards in a tight elevator but not one guy? What kind of sense does that make? Jack goes on his own for a bit to get Paul, but Paul pulls a trap card on Jack and blows up a ship. There's talk about a countermeasure device made by Will to repair the time fracture, which needs to be found, and the lifeboat protocol for selected members of Monarch to be preserved in a limited space where time is regulated to develop a solution to the time fracture. The lifeboat protocol is the final option Paul was talking about, saving the select few to find a solution while leaving the rest of the population behind. This is what Will is trying to stop. Jack later joins Beth to find out more about Will's research on time travel in a secret building that he owns with his own time machine in it. They manage to turn on the time machine but don't know how to work it, so they go to kidnap Paul's top scientist and MILF girlfriend, Sophia Amaral. The same actress, Jacqueline Pinol, also played Miles Morales' mom in Spider-Man, so double MILF. Sophia is loyal to Paul though, and calls Monarch security to their location to force Beth to go to the future and Jack to the past. In the past, Jack meets the Beth who just went to the future and traveled back to the past. Beth has seen the end of time with little hope for the future to be found. Jack refuses to give up anyway, and they go on back to Will's lab to find the countermeasure. But Paul and Monarch are there to stop them. During their struggle, they drop the countermeasure and it takes Jack back to the present year as there's something holding him there, and leaves Beth to get popped in the head by Paul, and he takes the countermeasure. Monarch had the countermeasure this whole time, but they didn't know how to work it, so they repurposed it into the CFR, Chronon Field Regulator, which is what makes the lifeboat protocol work. Next, Jack breaks into Monarch, steal the CFR, go back in time to save Will, fight Paul, activate the CFR in Will's time machine, and finally fix the time fracture. Then they all lived happily ever after. The end. But wait, there's more! I forgot to mention that the story is narrated by Jack in the form of a flashback with him being interviewed by Ogawa, who is part of Monarch. Throughout the game, you're led to think that Jack is telling his story after everything happened in Monarch's custody or something. But actually, Jack went back in time to Monarch to get rid of Paul, and the story ends with Hatch asking him to team up. Jack also has Paul's ability to look forward in time after killing him, and it shows the two outcomes that he can choose to affect the future. Now it's over. The story is alright. There were some missed opportunities for cool shit like fighting Hatch and character development. It's a story about leaving the past behind and fighting to save the future no matter how grim it gets, and it's a motivational message. But is it really about that though? Throughout the game, it's been into us that the past can't be changed, and it's shown through Paul. At the end, Jack goes back in time to get rid of Paul for Monarch. Why did he do that? Did Jack want to fuck Beth so bad that he traveled back in time to save her? Did the countermeasure not work? Did they only temporarily stop the time fracture? So does this mean that Paul was right all along? Does this mean that with Jack going back in time, he's repeating the same thing that Paul did, triggering everything that happened again? Well, then that's just unfortunate to say the least. Why couldn't the rest of the story be at that quality of fucked up? That would have made the game more memorable. Overall, the majority of the story is alright, but that ending. The more you read into it, the more sad it gets. Wait, what even happens to people stuck in time? It's not like they die or anything, so is it so bad going with Paul's idea of using the CFR for the lifeboat protocol and using the time to figure shit out? Whatever, fuck it. Oh, I forgot to mention Jack and Beth. Jack is... well, as soon as I saw his emotionless face and lack of concern for Will's death, I stopped caring about him. Beth has this cool backstory of her future self visiting her younger self to give her this notebook with everything she needs to do to help with the time fracture. She even has graffitis you can collect in game, but just like Jack, she's boring otherwise. And their romance is hinted but not developed, and at the end it's revealed that Jack whispered "I'll come back for you" to Beth before going on his way during his trip back to save Will. And it's like, okay, so they're gonna fuck, or... Also, Paul is edgy at first, but soon he fades away from the villain role and he's seen as a more sympathetic character. I still found him boring though. I've seen enough characters who are trying to do shit for the greater good and look evil, and there's nothing that makes him stand out from that. From what I've read online, the world building and lore behind time shifters and all that are cool. It's all behind long text logs though, and I don't bother with that shit. This is just what I saw is what I got reviews, so don't throw my dick on a grill if I misunderstood something. Quantum Break is okay. The graphics are good, but it looks blurry due to the intense motion blur and depth of field, and like in Alan Wake, it's missing the ability to toggle those off. There are also frame pacing issues, and whatever happened in the ship part was. The combat is flashy, but could have included more enemies to utilize your time powers better. The story is alright, it has an interesting ending, but the journey there and the characters are whatever, and the TV show portion really slows things down. There's nothing really that memorable with Quantum Break. It looks flashy and all that, but that's it. Reminds me of another game I reviewed recently. The game's pretty cheap on sale, so if it looks interesting to you, I guess it wouldn't hurt. I'd rather just play Max Payne again. Thanks for watching, subscribe and leave a like. See you next time whenever that is. Later.